Hi everybody. In this video, we are going to be talking about unit 2.3.1, which is adding fractions and mixed numbers. And first, we're just going to start pretty easy where we're just adding fractions with like denominators. So denominators that are going to be the same or they're like one another. In that case, what we do when we have denominators that are the same, we just add the numerators together. So we are going to add the numerators together and we keep the denominators the same. So sometimes I've seen students try to add the denominators as well, but we don't do that. We keep the denominators the same and we only add the numerators. So we're going to keep the denominators the same. And then our third step is to simplify to lowest terms, expressing improper fractions as a mixed or whole number. So as mixed or whole numbers. And so just giving a couple of examples in here. One example, let's say we've got 3/6 plus 2/6. And you might be tempted at this point to say, oh, I'm going to reduce those. That's going to be 1/2 and 1/3. But if we do 1/2 and 1/3, we no longer have a common denominator. And so when we are adding and subtracting fractions, the first thing you always want to check is that your denominators are the same. And in this case, they are. And so now we take just the numerators. And this is an extra step. You don't have to write this one in here. But essentially what we're doing is this. We're taking 3 plus 2, which is going to give us 5, and that gives us 5/6. And then that's our final answer. You would always assess it at the end and ask yourself, can I reduce that? Is there any common factor I can take out of the numerator and the denominator? And if the answer to that is no, then you just keep going. So our answer is 5/6. Our next one that we're going to check out, it's going to be 14/15. And we are adding 6/15 to that. So again, you're checking to make sure that your denominator is the same, and it is. So now we're going to take 14 plus 6, and that's going to give us 20/15. And then we're saying, okay, well, is there anything I can do to simplify that? Do I have a common factor? And we do. We've got a common factor of 5. So we can take that out and then we're going to end up getting 4/3. And then if the directions ask you to go ahead and express it as a mixed number, you can do that. Otherwise, you could just circle or box up that as your answer. But this one says to go ahead and express it as a mixed or whole number. So we're going to express it both ways because right here we've got an improper fraction. And it would be or 1 1/3. And I want to pause just for a second because I have had students ask me before if we can write it as a mixed number at that step. And we absolutely can. Like if you wanted to write it as a mixed number at that step, we would say, well, 15 will go into 20 one time with 5 left over. So it'd be 1 5/15. And then we would just reduce that. And that again would be 1 1/3. So we still get the same answer. So your choice about that. All right, one more for you. We've got 3/28 plus 7/28. Oh, I'm sorry, that should be 4. 4/28. So we've got 3/28 plus 4/28, which is what gives us our 7/28. And then you ask yourself, can I reduce that? And the answer to that is yes. So we're going to divide both sides, both the numerator and the denominator by 7, which is going to give us 1/4. And that's our final answer. All right. So let's look at the next type where we are adding fractions with unlike denominators or denominators that are not the same. So our first step is to find a common denominator. So first we want to find a common denominator, then we're going to rewrite each fraction using that common denominator. Then we're going to add the numerators together. But we're going to keep the denominator the same, just like we did up above. Then we're going to simplify to lowest terms, expressing improper fractions as mixed or whole numbers. All right, so let's check out some examples and we're going to use those directions. So for our first one, our first example, we've got 2/3 and we are adding 4/5. So 2/3 plus 4/5. And again, you're looking at your denominators here to say, what's our least common multiple? And if you want to, you can use what we did on the previous section of notes where we did like that upside down division symbol where we went like this and we did 3 and 5. And then we would look at 3 and 5 and we would say, well, first of all, they're prime, but they're also relatively prime to one another, which means that the least common multiple, the least common denominator is going to be the product of those two numbers. So it's going to be 15 because the only number that would come out of them would be 1, and then that's 3 and 5, and then you multiply them together, and your LCM is going to be 15. So that's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to say, well, my new denominator is going to be 15. And so I'm just going to rewrite my new denominator. And then you ask yourself, 3 times what gives me 15? And so it's 3 times 5. And if I multiply the denominator by 5, you also multiply the numerator by 5. So we're going to multiply this 2 by 5. So that gives you 10. And then same thing here, you're saying 5 times what is going to give me 15, and that's times 3. So you multiply your numerator also by 3, and that gives you 12. So 4 times 3 gives you 12. Now, because we have a common denominator of 15, we can take 10 and 12, and we are going to add that. And so we're going to get 22 over 15. Sorry about that, 22 over 15. And then you can ask yourself, is there anything I can take out? Can I simplify that at all? And I can't, but I can rewrite it as a mixed number. And so we would say, or how many times will 15 go into 22? Once, with our 7 left over. So 1 and 7/15. So there are 2 answers for that one. All right, so let's try another one. We're going to try one where we have 3/4 plus 1/6 plus 5/8. And we're trying to add those all up together. And again, you might say, okay, well, I'm not exactly sure what my LCM is going to be. And so you absolutely can do that upside down division again, where you do 4, 6, and 8. And you say, what's the highest, the largest number that will go into all 3 of them? And it should be 2. And then we would get 2, 3, 4. And then you say, okay, what's another number that can go into all 3 of them? And there's nothing, but we do see that a 2 can go into 2 and 4. So then we're going to take that out. And so 2 divided by 2 gives us 1. The 3 is just going to drop down. 4 divided by 2 gives us 2. And so now we are ready to take this outside and multiply it together to get our LCM, or our lowest common denominator. And so 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 3 is 12, and 12 times 2 is 24. So it's going to give us 24 for that. And again, that's because we did 2 times 2 times 3 times 2, and that gives us 24. Okay, so what that means is I'm going to rewrite each of these fractions with a common denominator of 24. And then you are asking yourself on each of these, 4 times, so 4 times what gives me 24? It's going to be 6. And so 3 times 6 is going to give me 18. 6 times 4 is going to give me 24. So I multiply the numerator by 4, which is going to give me 4. 8 times 3 gives me 24. So 5 times 3 gives me 15. And now we are ready just to add our numerators straight across. And when we're adding that up, we should be getting, sorry, let me get back over here. So we're taking 18 and 4, and we're adding the 15. That's going to be all over 24, and we should be getting 37. 22. Yep, 37. Okay, so 37 over 24. And then again, ask yourself, is there anything we can reduce, anything we can take out? No, but we can rewrite it as a mixed number. And so then it would be or 1 and 13/24 as our other answer. And so we can circle or box that up. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another one. So the third one we are going to try is going to be 3/13 and 15 over 26. So 3/13 and 15 over 26. So in this situation, our lowest or least common multiple is going to be 26 because 13 times 2 is going to give us 26. So I'm just going to rewrite both of these again with our common denominator of 26. So that's going to give me a 6 over here because 3 times 2 is going to give me 6. The 15 is going to remain the same. And then I'm ready to say, well, 15 plus 6 is going to give me 21. And 21 over 26 is my answer. So then you ask yourself, is there anything I can reduce, anything I can take out? And then the answer to that is no. So we're going to circle or box that up. Next one, number 4. So this time we've got 22 over 3 plus 14 over 5 plus, let's see, 11/12. Keep losing my place here. Plus 11/12. So let's do the upside down division to figure out what our least common multiple is going to be. And so we've got 3, 5, and 12. And it looks like there's nothing I can take out of all 3, but there is a 3 that I can take out of 3 and 12. So I'm going to take out a 3. So that's going to become a 1. The 5 is just going to drop. And then I've got 12 divided by 3 is going to give me 4. So I'm looking, there's nothing more for me to take out. So that means my LCM is going to be 3 times 1 times 5 times 4 multiplied together, which is going to get me my LCM of 60 because 5 times 4 is 20. 20 times 3 is going to give me 60. All right, so here we go. We're going to write up 60 and then 60 and then 60. So we're going to write that up. And so for each of these, I'm going to, again, be asking myself 3 times what is going to give me 60, and that should be times 20. And then I'm going to multiply this by 20, and that should give me 440. And then here, 5 times 12 should give me 60. And then 14 times 12, I'm not sure, but we're going to do 14 times 12 quick on my calculator. 14 times 12 is giving me 168. And then we're going to do 12 times 5 gives me 60, and 11 times 5 is going to give me 55. So let me make sure that looks right so far. It looks good. So now we're going to take our numerators and we're going to add those up, and we should end up getting 440 plus 168 plus 55. Let me add that up. 440 plus 168. You guys should check this in your calculator as well. Make sure we're getting the same thing. Should be 663 over 60. And it definitely looks like we're going to be able to reduce some things here. So let's figure out like 663, and I'm going to divide it by 60. We're going to see how many times it's going to go in there. And it's 11 point something. So I know that this is going to go in here 11 times, which would be 660, right? 11 times 60 is going to be 660, which would give me 3 left over. So it'd look like that, right? So we want to go ahead and keep reducing it. And then that's going to end up being 11 and 1/20 for your final answer for that one. All right, so let's look at the next page. So we were just adding some fractions on that page. Here we're going to start looking at adding mixed numbers and whole numbers too. So when we're adding mixed numbers with like and unlike denominators, first we're going to add the whole numbers together. So add the whole numbers together. And then we are going to add the proper fractions together using the same steps as noted before. And we're going to regroup if necessary. Or here's your other step. This is the one that I would say most students tend to like this one better. Or change both the mixed numbers to improper fractions and then add and simplify. Honestly, I would say that majority of the students for me tend to like this way better. Then we are going to add and simplify. So just taking out any common factors. All right, number one. So our first one is we've got 12 and 1/8. And if we are adding 23 and 3/4. So I kind of like to regroup first instead of doing the improper fractions, but you can totally do improper fractions if you would rather. But let me show you the first way. The first way, so this is called regrouping. So we're gonna regroup is this first way. So what I do here is I'm first looking at my proper fraction portion, and I see that they do not have a common denominator. So I want to get a common denominator, and it looks like my common denominator could be 8. So I'm going to multiply. So I'm going to just rewrite it with my 8 over here. So then I'm going to multiply this 4 by 2 to give me my 8, which means I have to multiply this 3 by 2 to give me a 6. And then the 1/8 just stays exactly as is. So then here's the proper fraction part right here, right? So we're going to add that portion together. And then I'm also going to add this whole number portion together. So I'm just going to add that. So that's going to be 35. And then 6 and 1 gives me 7. And it's going to be 7/8. So 35 and 7/8. And that is my final answer. But here's the other way, because a lot of students, because sometimes this is a lot trickier. This one was pretty straightforward. Sometimes these are a lot trickier where maybe we come up with something different in the proper fraction form. And instead, maybe we came up with like 35 and 9/8. Well, then we have to rewrite that. And we would rewrite that as 35 plus 1 and 1/8, right? And then we would come up with our final answer of 36 and 1/8. And so sometimes there's some extra steps that we have to do there, and students aren't as comfortable with that. And so they just prefer to do this part, number 3, where we just do the same thing no matter what. And that's where we change it to improper, and then we just do what we did on the previous page. So I'm going to show you that way too, just so you have it and you can put it in your notes. That way you have both ways. So this is like using your step number 3, and we're just doing improper fractions. So improper fractions. So again, we would take that 12 and 1/8, and I'm just going to write it horizontally this time, and we're adding it to 23 and 3/4. So this again, it's where we're taking our 12 times our 8, and then we're adding the 1. So our 96 plus 1, which is 97. So we would have 97 over 8. And then we are adding, here we're doing 23 times 4 plus our 3. So 23 times 4. You can put that in your calculator if you want, or you can probably figure that one out. And that one should be your 92. And then you're adding 3 to it. So that should give you 95 over 4. But then you've got to get a common denominator. And so we're going to get a common denominator. We're going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2. So then we end up getting, what should that be? Okay, so we've got 97 over 8 plus 90, 90 is 180, 190, so that should be 190 over 8. And then you're adding those two together, and we end up with, I have the answer written here, we end up getting 287 all over 8. And then again, that's what our improper fraction would be, but then we would rewrite it as our mixed number, which would be or 35 7/8. And so then we get our two answers. So I know that one was like a little bit more work compared to this first version, but sometimes that first version of regrouping is it's many more steps, and the improper fractions is just an easier way to go. So it kind of depends on what we're given to begin with. So let's check out another one and see what you guys think. So the next one we're going to check out is 8 5/6. And we are going to add 7 4/9 to that. So 8 5/6 plus 7 4/9. So first, what I would look at is what can our common denominator be? Common denominator. So I would say 18 because I'm just taking multiples of 9. And so we're saying 18 and multiples of 9 that 6 will also go into. And so this would be 18. So that means I'm going to multiply this by 2 and this by 2. So that gives me 8. And that means I'm multiplying this one by 3. So I'm multiplying this 5 by 3, which is going to give me 15. All right, so here's the regrouping way, right? So here's regrouping. We've got our 8 and our 7 that we're adding. So that's going to give me 15. And then I'm going to take 15 and 8, and that's going to give me 23 over 18. And again, you might think, okay, wait a second, I can't, this is an improper fraction right here. So we're just going to rewrite that, and we can write 15 plus 1, and it's going to be 5/18. So 15 plus 1 and 5/18. And then we just add those together. And that's going to give us 16 5/18 as our final answer. Or here's the other way. Just deal with the improper fractions portion. So I'm going to go back up to what I had right here. I had 8 15/18. So I'm just going to write that. 8 15/18. And I am adding 7 8/18. And so what we're going to do next is we're going to change that into improper fractions, and then we're going to add. So I'm going to do 18, make sure I type that in right, 18 times 8, which gives me 144, plus 15, and that gives me 159. So I'm doing 159 over 18. And then I'm going to add 18 times 7. That gives me 126 plus 8, which gives me 134. So I'm going to add 159 to 134, which should give me 293. That gives me 293 over 18, which again, when I'm changing it back into a mixed number, is going to give me 16 5/18 for my answer. So you can do it either way. So then here's one I would like for you guys to do. Have you guys do this one. I want you to do it both ways. So I want you to leave it and do the regrouping thing where you're leaving it as mixed numbers. And then I want you to try to change it into improper fractions and then add them, and you should end up with the same exact answer. So I want you guys to do this one. You should have 3 11/12. And I want you to add 11 4/9 to it. And again, I know most of your calculators can do this for you. It's going to put it in a fraction. It's going to simplify it, but that's not the point. The point is I want to be able to see you be able to do the steps here. and to get a common denominator. And I want to see it both ways. I want to be able to see you guys do the regrouping way where you're adding your mixed numbers. And then I also want to see you change it into improper fractions down here and then add it. And you should end up with the same exact answer. And then that would be a great way to check your work. So the answer that you should be getting for both of them, you should be getting 15 and 13 over 45 for this one. And then down here, once you're adding it, you should end up with 553 over 36. And then you're expressing that also as a mixed number. So I want you guys to do that one. And if I was you, I'd pause the video right here and just pause it and then go do those problems and then come back and do these two with me. So here we've got a stack of pamphlets. It's placed on top of a book. If the stack of pamphlets is 3 1/4 inches thick and the book is 5 3/4 inches thick, how high is the pile? So this one's not so bad. This one we're taking 3 1/4 and we're adding 5 3/4 to it. And we already have a common denominator. So that's great. So you've got a common denominator of 4. So I'm going to take the 5 and the 3 and I'm going to add it and I get 8. And then I'm taking the 3 and the 1 and I get 4. And I get 8 4/4. Well, what is that? 8 4/4. That's essentially is like 8 plus 1, which is going to give me 9. And then don't forget your label. It's 9 inches thick. Then our next one, it says a cake recipe requires 2 5/8 cup of milk and 1 1/2 cup melted butter. If these are the only liquids, how much liquid is in this recipe? So again, we're adding them because we're saying here's a liquid, how much total liquid is in this recipe? So we're going to take 2 5/8, and I'm going to add 1 1/2. Again, I want to get a common denominator. Your choice, if you would prefer to do improper fractions, go ahead and do that. I'm going to just do regrouping. So I know that my denominator is going to be 8, and I'm going to rewrite this as 1, and then it's going to be an 8 here. So times 4 times 4. So then I'm going to get 2 and 1 is 3, and 5 and 4 is 9/8. And this is an improper fraction, so I've got to fix that. So this is going to be 3 plus 1 1/8, which is going to give me 4 1/8 cup of liquid. So 4 1/8 cup of liquid ingredients should be our right answer for that one. Okay, that's it for this video. Thanks for tuning in.